Grimfrost Podcast. Today's guest is Jackson Crawford, author, linguist, and educator.
So, welcome to Sweden and to our longhouse.
Thank you so much. It's
Great.
An awesome place.
Yeah, great to have you here. How was your journey? It was fairly long, I heard.
Oh, well, to go from outside of Denver to well outside of Stockholm. Yeah, it took a few stops, but it was just fine.
Yeah. But no major jet lag or is it just horrible?
Going this way, I don't get jet lag.
Oh, really?
It's going back the other way.
Because for me, it's exactly the opposite.
Huh.
Yeah.
Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, but
I come this way and I wake up the first morning and I'm fine to start with.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I go back the other way and I'm dead.
because I always feel like when you go the other way, you kind of just extend your day.
Yeah.
But here, you kind of, it all gets messed up because you didn't sleep enough. You come back early in the morning and then you have the whole day ahead of you. It's just, everything is just whacked.
Yeah. But I'm a very old man. So like extending my day going back is much harder.
Oh, I see. Yeah. As opposed to me, I'm very, very young. So, yeah.
I can tell you're younger at heart than I am. Yeah.
Well, I never passed the age of 5, according to my wife. But that's a different story. I was kind of expecting you to have the cowboy hat, though, because that's kind of your signum, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a signature. I wear it where it's normal.
Oh, okay.
Right. I feel like coming to Sweden with it, it's like it stands out.
Then again, Karlstad is kind of, I think this part of Sweden, they kind of like the old-time American country and Western and stuff like that. So
maybe, but if you're bringing a cowboy hat, you are committing to wearing it the entire time.
It's kind of true.
You can't pack it.
No, not really.
So you're wearing that in the Munich airport and the Stockholm airport. You know what I mean?
That is true. That is true. I get your point. Anyways, one of the things you're doing here as well, apart from this podcast, is that you're celebrating Midsummers together with us.
Yeah.
Are you looking forward to that?
Oh, definitely. I've never been in Sweden for Midsummer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you never celebrated Midsummers at all?
Well, I suppose not.
What do you know about the Swedish tradition of Midsummer's Eve?
Oh, well, put me on the spot.
Don't say the movie.
No, I've never seen it.
Me neither, but everybody's, I saw the movie. What the hell did I just watch? And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, actually, every time that I've mentioned Midsommar to anyone in the USA, it's always the movie.
Oh, it is? Yeah.
So people do know the movie well, but I'm not a horror movie person. So, but it's, I don't know. My understanding is that it's Swedish summer Christmas. Right?
Yes.
So
almost more important, actually.
That's what I've always heard. Yeah. There's a pole people dance around.
Yes.
Yeah.
A completely phallic kind of pole stuck in the ground.
Oh, I could see how that could be phallic. Yeah.
Yeah. It even has 2 circles on the top that kind of resemble balls in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like Mjolnir, actually.
Yes. Yes, indeed. So, you don't have any kind of midsummer celebration in Colorado?
No. It's definitely the middle of the tourist season there, too.
Mm.
This is the time of year where you don't want to go to Rocky Mountain National Park for sure.
Okay.
Right? It's going to be like New York City up there. No, people notice the solstice maybe, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't really have that kind of... I don't even think Colorado has any special holidays. There's Colorado Day, but that's just the date of statehood, so we don't really do anything for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why not? Colorado is awesome. You have lots to celebrate.
In some ways, I think we're actually... Here's a hot take for you. I think Wyoming is the Iceland of the United States. I think Colorado is kind of the Sweden of the United States, culturally.
I see.
We are, I think, a more reserved people in a lot of ways.
Maybe that's why I enjoy it so much there.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, we really do need you to come back in your next tour.
Yeah, I know. Actually, you asked me about that earlier, and actually, I think we are coming back, but next year.
Oh, okay.
So not on this one, but...
Well, there's so much cool stuff to show you.
Yeah.
But we are, I think, and here I have to draw a distinction between Coloradans and Coloradan tourists, which is a lot of people who live there now, actually.
Yeah.
We're a quiet people. So I don't think lagom.
Lagom is the word. Yeah, that's great. Well, I'd love to talk to you about Colorado, but that's not really why you're here.
Right.
Because you're a well-known and renowned linguist. Yes, you are.
Well, okay. I was going to say,
Don't be modest.
I don't know about the well-known or the renowned.
But let's just start off. Like, what does a linguist do? What is it that a linguist does?
Yeah, that's an excellent question to start with, because often I tell people I'm a linguist, and the first question is, how many languages do you speak? Which, yeah, any linguist probably is not monolingual, but that's not the point, right? You don't go to like linguistic school and that's, just language school. It's the difference between a driver and a mechanic. And we're the mechanics of language, right? I know how to pop the hood and tell you what's going on. I don't necessarily always know how to get behind the wheel, right? I can't drive every language that I can fix the engine of, as it were.
I see.
Yeah, so in my program, I'm a historical linguist, or the old word is philologist. So what I'm looking at is, how is this old language related to this modern language, or how are these multiple old languages related to each other? What do they come from? Can we reconstruct a plausible ancestor for this and this? Can we take that plausible ancestor and connect it to the plausible ancestor of something else? And what we're mostly looking for are regular correspondences between languages. So, for example, you can spot easy ones. Like English words with W have V in Swedish, right? Weather, väder. Then you can find tougher ones. Like in Germanic languages such as English and Swedish, we have Fs in all the native words, where Greek and Latin have Ps. So pater in Greek or Latin versus father in English, or far in Swedish.
But that's kind of interesting, because F in Iceland is pronounced P, isn't it?
Well, it depends. Before an N
Like
or an L.
Rapnin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pronounced P before an N or an L.
Oh, yeah. So you kind of have the double thing there.
Yeah. Well, modern Icelandic has so many conditioned sound changes, right? There's the double L, that's a TL. There's the FN that means PN. Yeah. It's tough to teach, actually, because I've taught modern Icelandic, and you spend weeks teaching people just how to say words, which is why I teach Old Norse pronunciation for Old Norse, because I don't want to spend 4 weeks teaching you to pronounce this when you can't really have a conversation in Old Norse. Or, well, you could try, but who would you talk to?
Yeah, so. I totally understand. But how did you get interested in becoming a philologist or a linguist in the first place?
Yeah, it's a story that I've told in, I guess, different versions, but the complete version might be that my childhood fascination was with dinosaurs. And it turns out, my family's very split. My father's side is scientific, skeptical, and my mom's side is very old school American Protestants. And it turns out that it was actually a conspiracy by my dad and my grandfather to get me interested in dinosaurs at a young age, because then I would independently encounter concepts such as evolution.
Wow. I see.
That my mom wouldn't allow me
Very
to talk.
Convoluted.
It is a little convoluted. But that's what my dad told me. It was like a conspiracy. But I did get really, really into dinosaurs. And we had this place called Dinosaur Ridge. It's right by Red Rocks, where you've performed.
Yes.
And so I just had the opportunity to go out and see dinosaur bones in the rock.
Oh, wow.
And I just got fascinated with it. Like, what if I find a dinosaur? And actually, later in my life, I have. But then in middle school, I could choose Latin, French, Spanish, or German. And I chose Latin because I thought, well, I already know all the dinosaur names.
So you thought you had an edge.
I have an edge, yeah. And so for some reason, something about, like in the 90s when I was a kid, it had just barely started to be kind of known that birds were dinosaurs. And so I had become fascinated by this. Like, oh my gosh, the birds outside the window, those are dinosaurs. And I could kind of see it.
I kind of remember when that whole thing became like news even.
Yeah.
And I thought it was amazing.
Yeah,
it is fascinating.
Oh yeah, it blows my mind every day, right? I mean, literally still blows my mind every day because I love birds.
Yeah.
And so combining those two and kind of realizing like, oh, this changed into this over time, right? To put it simply. But then when I started studying Latin, I recognized that, oh, this is like the dinosaur to the bird that is Spanish. Because I recognized all these words from Spanish that I heard all around me. And I said, oh, so this is like the dinosaur of this language.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So I thought, well, what is the dinosaur to English? And this was before you could just, or before one would think about just going online and Googling an answer to something. And I kept thinking, oh, what does English come from, right? So I had read about Old English in an Encyclopedia Britannica, and I got really excited about that. But I didn't know where to find out more about it. And then one summer, my grandma took me to this old used bookstore in Denver that was called Tattered Cover. It's still there, but it's not the same. But it used to have just these piles of used books. And in one of these piles, I found an Old English grammar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
that's where, like, you're deviated from the...
I deviated.
Yeah, the preset course.
Yeah, well, both the preset course my family would have liked.
Yeah, exactly.
but also the preset course I had in mind, which was dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And then, from there, I just got fascinated with old languages. I studied ancient Greek on my own. And then by the time I got to college, I started writing fan letters to linguists.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like I'd write a handwritten letter.
That is odd.
Yeah.
I wrote a fan letter to a motocross driver.
Makes more sense, actually.
When I was a kid, but yeah.
Did you have a poster of him on the wall?
Not really, no. But
Not really.
That was because motocross wasn't like a big sport in Sweden.
Oh, okay.
So, but he won the world championships for 500cc, and I thought that was awesome. So
that's rad.
Yeah.
Did he reply?
Yeah, I got a postcard with an autograph.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
See, most linguists did not respond to my fan letters, but one did, or actually a few did. And Brent Vine at UCLA wrote me and said, oh, you wanted to know what old languages you should be studying. And he said, you should study Old Norse because you already know Old English and it's very similar.
Oh, so that's why you decided to specialize there?
Well, at the time, I didn't know it was going to be my specialty.
Oh, okay. So that was the door that opened up.
That was the first door.
Yeah.
And then the second door into Old Norse was I had a class in middle school that was called Adolescent Literature, which was basically just most people slept in it, but you could read whatever you wanted. The teacher, I don't know, she wouldn't let me sleep. She wouldn't let me just read what I wanted. She said, no, you're my project for some reason. I don't know why. And honestly, teachers like that can be wonderful inspirations. They can also be huge pains.
Yeah.
But she was an inspiration. And she made me read classics and philosophy and things like that. And I read this book called Mythology by Edith Hamilton. And it was mostly about Greek and Roman. But at the very end, there was this tiny little appendix about Norse mythology.
Oh, wow.
And it had these quotes from Hávamál. And it sounded to me like my grandfather.
Okay.
I was like, this is like someone reached into my grandfather's soul and wrote down his code. Because he always talked about this code that he lived by. And I would always ask him, well, what is the code? You know, he wouldn't spell it out.
Yeah.
It was just, well, that's the code, or that isn't the code, or he lives by the code, or he doesn't. And I thought, well, this is the code. And it's, from a Icelandic manuscript 800 years ago.
Yeah, that's great. But it's interesting that you say that, like, Old English and Old Norse were so close because they were more or less the same language at one point in time.
There would have been a time when they were, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably, it's hard to say. Maybe 2,000 years ago or so, there wouldn't really have been a difference between any of the Germanic languages. When we look at runic inscriptions around the 300s, it can be pretty hard to say if they're Proto-North Germanic or Proto-West Germanic, right? If they're ancestral to something that ultimately becomes Old Norse or Swedish, or if they ultimately become English. All the Germanic languages kind of look similar in the early part of the first millennium AD. And so maybe English and Norse had been separated for about 1,000 years by the time the Vikings are in England, probably a little less than that. But there's still enough continuity. I believe they probably could have communicated after a little bit of time interacting, a little bit of a Swedish-Danish situation.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah, because I think at first it's kind of like, what am I hearing? And then after you adjust to it, you realize like, oh, okay, when I say this, they say that. When I, this vowel is that vowel. Okay, it's a book bulg kind of situation. Yeah.
Yeah. I totally get it. But so how far back in, like, can we trace, well, let's stick to Old Norse, like our common language tree, family tree. Like, is it possible to know that?
Yeah, I mean, we can reconstruct an ancestor 5,000 years ago for most languages in Europe.
Oh, wow.
And northern India and Iran. And then we can take that, Proto-Indo-European, and potentially even compare that to other reconstructed ancient languages. So, for example, some recent work suggests that Proto-Indo-European may be distantly related to Basque, spoken in northern Spain.
Yeah.
Distantly, not close, but the Indo-European language family that comes from this ancestor includes the Germanic languages like English, Swedish, German, the Romance languages, Greek, Iranian, languages in India like Hindi, Slavic languages, etc. And so the Germanic languages, our branch, have three main branches. There's East Germanic, which is Gothic, right, the oldest one that we have much writing in. North Germanic, which is the Scandinavian languages, and then West Germanic, representing English, Dutch, German, etc.
Yeah.
And so with the Scandinavian languages, we can talk about multiple different stages. The earliest written stage, nobody seems to agree about what to call it.
Oh, okay.
I like to call it Proto-Norse because it emphasizes the continuity with Old Norse and is 3 syllables.
Yeah.
But there are multiple other possibilities. Proto-Scandinavian is an option some people prefer. Some people prefer to use the German term Urnordisch.
Oh, yeah.
In Scandinavian, you sometimes see Urnordisk, Proto-Scandinavisk, Proto-Nordisk. You see all kinds of names for it. I'll stick to Proto-Norse.
Yeah.
So that's what we find in Elder Futhark inscriptions in Scandinavia. Up to, by the 600s, the language is changing a lot. And that language, I mean, if you've ever looked at these Elder Futhark inscriptions, you know, the Yashberry is right outside of town, that stone. There's twice as many syllables as in Old Norse. Right?
I never thought about that, no.
Yeah, but these are such long names, right? You know, Hadewolvas and what's another one? Hlewagastiz, right? It's all these 4-syllable names. So one of the really distinctive changes from Proto-Norse to more recognizable Old Norse in the Viking Age and after is that mostly you take these, for every 2 syllables, you get 1 in Old Norse usually.
Yeah.
And that second syllable usually mutates the vowel in the syllable before it. So, for example, gastiz is an element in a lot of names in Proto-Norse. That becomes gestar in Old Norse. So the I mutates the A and drops out, and the Z turns into an R.
Is that because the Futhark also changed the actual alphabet?
We don't know what the because is here, but it's really interesting that they do change at about the same time. Right, they switch from the Elder Futhark to the Younger Futhark, although there's an intermediary stage, right? So there's a period when they're still writing more like Elder Futhark, but the language has begun to change a lot. We see that in some runestones that seem to be datable to about the 600s.
So maybe it's the other way around. Then
it could be the other way
The
around.
language started to change, so they changed to Futhark.
Yeah, and what's funny about it is that the Elder Futhark would have still been better for writing this.
Okay.
Right? Elder Futhark, this is a hot take for you.
Yeah.
Elder Futhark is a wonderfully efficient alphabet. Younger Futhark sucks.
Okay.
Like, I'm not saying I don't like it because I do. I'm very into it. It's what I prefer to use just because I'm used to it now. But it is a terrible, inefficient writing system, right? It's 16 letters.
Yeah.
So there's 9 vowel sounds in Old Norse.
I know.
Like, you know, we have 4 letters for writing those 9 vowels. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, Elder Futhark was very efficient. It had a letter for every sound, and every sound had a letter. Younger Futhark, you have to know all kinds of weird substitutions you have to make. So it doesn't actually make sense because the language was developing more distinct vowel sounds. Why did the alphabet become less efficient?
That's a tough question.
It is a tough question, and we don't know, right? It could just be, is it an aesthetic development, right? Do people think this looks better? Are these the letters that some influential person happened to remember?
Yeah.
And so he stopped using 8 of them. I mean, most of the letters that were not used much are dropped. But
I was thinking carving. I mean, carving in stone, it takes forever.
Yeah.
So if you just get rid of a couple of letters, just stick to these 16 and just do those.
Maybe, but some of the ones they kept are the most complicated.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like this. So it's very, very hard to understand why this happened. And there is, like I said, there's an intermediary stage where they're still writing the older way, but the language has started to change. And even some intermediate alphabet stages where they keep some of the elder Futhark letters, but they've started to transition to the younger Futhark stage. So we do see some inscriptions like, there's the Ribe skull fragment from Ribe, Denmark, that has some elder Futhark letters still, but it's the younger Futhark system.
I see.
So we really don't know what happened there, why it changed the way it did.
But do we have any idea what the process of like the branching out of language are in general? Like
sure.
how that works? Does that apply also for Old Norse?
Sure. I mean, you see language change happening all around you every day. And it's just in the little ways that the speech of one group becomes differentiated from the speech of another. I think all around Sweden, there's that different, think about how people say ship, right? Some people say whip, some people say sheep, some people say shep, right? That sh or sh-like sound is hua for some people, sh for some people.
Yeah.
So, 1,000 years ago, that was ska, right? Ship in Old Norse is skip.
Yeah.
Right. So that ska has become sh, and some people started to say hua.
Yeah.
Right. That sound has changed over time, and it's changing right now because more and more people are adopting to a more central Swedish accent, even in areas where that didn't used to be the common accent. Or a very prominent one to me in English is, I say, and this is something that you can find out I say from all of my YouTube comments because people make fun of it. I say what. Right.
Yeah.
I pronounce WH different from W.
Yeah. What? Cool whip.
Cool whip. Yeah.
Sorry.
Is Johan Hegg saying cool whip? Does that break the internet, as they say?
But that's pretty cool. But it's interesting that you say that as well, because I actually talked to, I forget who I was talking to about this now, but we're talking about dialects. Actually, I talked to my father about this the other day as well. Things start popping up in the old noggin here. But like he grew up just on the border to Dalarna.
Oh, wow.
All right. So basically he grew up in a town called Norberg. And a little bit like 6 kilometers west of Norberg is the town of Fagersta. And 6 kilometers east of Norberg, northeast, is Avesta. And they all have very distinct, different dialects, even though they are so close. So how much does geographical situations such as like rivers, ridges, or bodies of water, or whatever, contribute to developing languages in different ways?
Oh, a lot. I mean, all it takes is just a little bit of geographical pressure to put two different communities on two different trajectories of language change. Because if you never cross that big river, if you never cross that mountain ridge, and you don't have to, right? You get all your sheep at home, right?
Yeah.
You raise all your own vegetables. Yeah, those two languages are going to start to divulge. And it's going to be, to start with, subtle things, right? It's going to be, well, we say what now, we don't say what.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be that kind of thing. It only takes 3 or so changes like that to make a language kind of unrecognizable. I mean, an example would be English day, Swedish dog, and German Tag.
Yeah.
There's 2 changes basically that have made those 3 different sounding words in 3 different sounding languages, right? And German, Ds become Ts at the beginning of words. In English, most Gs at the end of a word have become either a Y or a W, an off glide. And so really the Swedish version is a version that's closest to the original dagas. But, and then in German, the G at the end is pronounced as a K at the end of the word. So just 2 changes in English and German each make those kind of unrecognizably the same from the same thing. Or not unrecognizably, but you cannot come into a Swedish conversation and speak English. It's not the same language. You can't come into a German conversation and speak English. It's not the same language, right?
Yeah.
But 1,500 years ago, all these speakers could have understood each other.
Well, you kind of can come into a Swedish conversation and speak English because most Swedes love speaking English. But yeah, I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, I should have done it the other way around because English speakers will just stare at you.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, but it's not. But it's noticeable. It's not the same language, right?
Yes, I totally get what you mean.
Nobody mistakes Swedish for English, but like generation to generation, as those things change, they pile up.
Yeah.
And so you really cannot separate people without their language changing because people, no one knows why it is, but every child learns a slightly different language from the language of their parents. They hear things around them in school, from friends down the street. They pick up something from the TV, right? That's something that's driving a lot of change today is people hear, the Stockholm announcers, right? Or in the USA, we hear the CNN anchors who are from, wherever, but they all kind of approximate this very flat American accent that's reducing a lot of the differences that used to be between American dialects.
Yeah. But, and possibly as like for American TV as well, is that they, like they did in Sweden earlier, is that all people, no matter where in the country you're from, you're supposed to adopt a special way of speaking, which is kind of like a national Swedish dialect. Which is closer to Stockholm, but not necessarily like exactly Stockholm.
Rikssvenska.
Rikssvenska, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I speak Crawford svenska.
That's good. Yeah. But that's really interesting. So but I'm actually kind of curious to, like, if you go back in time. So do we know why do we know what mechanisms lie behind the branching of a language? Because obviously you always feel that, well, I speak Swedish and I speak it this way and this is the way we speak Swedish, but language is as we already kind of covered like a very fluent thing, and it changes over time. So, but why is that? What's the mechanisms behind that?
Part of it is an identity question. Kids don't want to sound like older people.
True.
Right? Kids want to kind of differentiate themselves from adults. So what often happens is a change starts as a way that kids are trying to sound a little bit distinct from the square older generation. And often, actually, that starts among women or girls.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because they want to, it's part of that creating that in-group, that clique, right? So one change you can watch that's happened this way in English is like.
Yeah.
Right? So in the 80s, this started as a Valley Girl thing, right? This was what cool young women did. They said like all the time. And then lagging about a half generation behind that, younger men pick it up too because they want to impress the same young women. And then it spreads into older generations too, but it never quite reaches the oldest generations.
Yeah.
And then eventually it burns out, or it just becomes part of the normal language. That change is probably becoming more like part of the normal language because people say like all the time.
Yeah. Actually, it's kind of interesting. We had a similar phenomenon in Sweden, which I somehow understand maybe is influenced by the Americans, but we say liksom.
Liksom, okay.
When we were kids, everything was liksom, which is actually like.
Yeah, that could be a direct influence from that.
Yeah.
There's something separate in Swedish, though. If you think about that buzzy l sound, right? Didn't that used to be mostly Stockholm?
I'm not sure what you mean, like the
v.
Oh, the leading I.
Yeah. Yeah. Like older people outside of Stockholm, you don't hear that quite so much. Like especially in Norrland.
Yeah. Norrland is like, they don't really have, they kind of have that actually. But otherwise, Lidingö, that's very specific to that island outside Stockholm.
Yeah. But it's like, that's where you hear lots of people from.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, you're watching SVT or something, or, you're watching popular entertainers or something.
That's true.
They often sound like that. And I feel like that's spread.
Yeah, because Lidingö is literally only the bridge to Lidingö is only like a couple of kilometers from the Swedish television TV house, and actually one of the major channels is right next to the bridge.
Yeah, and I think it's spreading.
Yeah.
Right? My impression is that every year more and more people do that.
Might be true, actually. I never thought about that. Now I have to listen for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a Swedish dialectologist,
No.
but this is just something that over time I've observed. It seems like it's more and more and more normal. And then also the pronunciation of, SK and whip, right? I feel like that's spreading.
How well do you think I would get by with the Swedish that I speak if I was magically transported back into the Viking age?
I've thought about this now and then. What if right now, a vortex appeared around this table and you and I both wound up 1,000 years ago? Okay.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting question how you versus I would get by, because I suspect accent-wise, you would sound better no matter what you were saying. Right? I mean, Swedish is directly derived from Old East Norse, which would have been spoken around here 1,000 years ago. So more likely you are going to be closer on target and repeating what people are saying back to them to their satisfaction. Your native language is directly derived from it, right? Now, intellectually, I know the grammar, which helps a lot because the grammar is extremely different from modern Swedish.
Yes.
But would I be able to sound normal to someone in a conversation? That's hard to know, right? I mean, you know and I know that today, learning any other language, you're never going to sound exactly like a native speaker, right? You may sound really close.
Yeah, you might get close.
But there's always going to be something usually that sets people off and makes them realize, like, where are you from? Right? It usually starts with that question.
Yeah. Like my sister who's lived in Canada since she was 18 years old. She's 5 years older than me, so almost like 40 years now. And she speaks fluent English, like flawless, but I could still detect a hint of Swedish.
Yeah, there's often some little hint in there. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you've got to learn. But, I wonder in a society like that of the medieval Norse, if it would have been wise to sound too different. Maybe not. But yeah, I think you would probably learn within a year to get by. I mean, if in that kind of immersive situation, the hardest thing would be the grammar.
Yeah. But I think you said somewhere as well, correct me if I'm wrong here, and then we'll just skip it. But I think you said somewhere as well that the dialects that we have in Sweden were, the sound of them were about the same in Old Norse as they are today in Swedish.
Well, we don't know that perfectly, right? One big difference is that Old Swedish did have the TH sounds of English, right?
Yeah.
So Thor, not Tor.
Yeah.
Right. And the vowels had not yet shifted the way they have today. So that, long O in Swedish is now oo.
Yeah.
Right. Book, but this bok in Old Norse. So you'd have to kind of rotate your vowels around the vowel tree a little bit.
Okay.
But a lot of the vowels would be the same. They just wouldn't be in the same words. If that makes sense.
But I was curious to, how would you know exactly what the language sounded like?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Well, we don't perfectly know. Right, there was probably kind of an old Swedish accent that would not be identical to a modern Swedish accent. Just like, as I mentioned, older people in Sweden will sound different from younger people in Sweden. Older people in the USA sound different from younger people in the USA. So yeah, we can't exactly get a picture of exactly what it would sound like. One of the biggest questions is, did it have tone distinctions like modern Swedish? Right? Do you have, that little up tone in a word like komma? Right?
Okay.
Was that present? I think it probably was. I think it probably patterned much like in modern Swedish, but maybe not, right? They don't write it.
No.
So how do you know?
Yeah.
But I think that the history, and just looking at what words have what tone in modern Swedish, I think it must have already been there in Old Swedish. But was it also there in Old Icelandic? Well, that's not what we're talking about. But how do you know? There's just nothing written. And then, there are subtle distinctions between people's pronunciation that, so imitating you or you imitating me, we could try it, right? Raising or lowering our voices or pronouncing vowels more like how the other one does. But there's a very distinctive way to the way you talk, right? Like it is and I mean, sort of famously, actually, right? Like, it would be hard to sound exactly like you.
Yeah.
And somebody who's a really good impressionist is doing a lot more than just pronouncing things the way you pronounce them, right? He learns to lengthen certain words the way you do.
Yeah.
He learns to emphasize certain words the way you do. He learns where where is your volume a little higher or lower? And that kind of thing, I can't project that for 1,000 years ago. But I can tell you what the sounds probably roughly were.
Yeah. Based on the written language, obviously, yeah.
And also triangulating from the modern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you say then defines Old Norse as a language? What makes it like into something unique and special?
Well, I think there's a lot special about it. So in time, it's what resulted from all of the sound changes to Proto-Norse after about the 600s. We have all these mutations of vowels. We have Z's that change into R's, right? So all the R's that are in Swedish today, in the plural or in the present tense of verbs, komar or, korpar, whatever. All those R endings used to be Z's.
Okay.
Which is closer in a way to English if you think about horses, right? Or sings.
Yeah.
Right. That S in English is related to the R in Swedish.
Okay.
But that change to R is a really distinctive North Germanic Scandinavian thing. And then Old Norse, we still talk about Old Norse up until about the Black Death. So late 1300s.
Yeah.
After that, Old Swedish is on its way to modern Swedish, Old Danish is on its way to modern Danish, etc. That period when so many people died, including people in the upper class, created this huge, this discontinuity between the past and the future, because all of a sudden, who's writing anymore, right? It's often a new generation of people who suddenly are in the position of keeping the records. And since the language had already been changing and they had been writing in such a conservative way up till then, all of a sudden they're writing more like they're talking. And so we suddenly see a written language that looks a lot more like our modern languages, because they're not comparing to those past models anymore. As soon as you have a written model, your language changes less quickly, or at least the written language does. Think about how in Swedish, we say dom, dom går, jag ser dom, but we write d and dem, right? So we still write this old distinction that we don't make in speech. So they were doing the same thing in the 1300s with a lot of distinctions that they no longer made. So after the 1380s or so, you suddenly see a written language that's much more like modern Swedish or modern Norwegian. So Old Norse ends at about the Black Death.
Okay. But that's actually kind of interesting, isn't that? Because I think maybe you don't, I assume that you studied this, but Norwegian, for instance, they have some very distinct dialects.
Oh, yeah.
But they also have almost two languages.
Yeah, it's
they have
written languages.
New Norwegian and Nynorsk or Bokmål.
Yeah.
And Bokmål is like translated into book speech.
Versus New Norwegian, Nynorsk.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a huge Nynorsk fan.
Yeah.
So like I do have opinions about all this, I guess.
Yeah.
But well, what's happened there is Norway. You talked about dialect differences. I mean,
yeah,
Norway is like that on steroids.
Yes.
Right. I mean, each doll can sound totally different from the next one, right? Yeah. Sometimes you listen to someone from Norway and like it takes 8 words to say, "Oh, I know the 5-mile radius you're from."
Exactly. It's like, crazy.
Yeah. So, their written language after the Kalmar Union, Norway remained with Denmark until the 1800s. So the written language was Danish all that time. So Bokmål is Danish just as a written language adapted to the Norwegian sound system. It's not very different from Danish. Nynorsk is an attempt by the 19th century linguist Ivar Aasen to make a compromise written form out of all the dialects.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So in practice, it ends up looking more like one of the Western dialects, but it was intended to be a compromise between all.
So it's not like a fluent change. It's an intentional.
It's intentionally
attempt.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's intentionally created out of something that's fluid.
Yeah.
That's fluid.
Okay.
But it's not made from just one dialect. It's a deliberate average. It actually winds up in its oldest form, the way Ivar Aasen designed it in the mid-19th century, it looks like Middle Norwegian, right? It looks like, early modern.
Okay.
But its form now is the result of a lot of compromises with Bokmål too.
Yeah. Maybe it's their version of Rikssvenska then.
Well, yeah, their version of Rikssvenska is really Bokmål.
Okay.
Yeah. Like that's what most people imitate when they want to sound like a newscaster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Or try to translate John Wayne into Norwegian.
Maybe they do.
That would be funny. Anyway,
John Wayne.
It is a big joke in Sweden. I love Norwegian. I'm part Norwegian. So, if any Norwegian person is watching this, no offense.
I love the reflex we always have to say, like, well, I'm part Norwegian, so forgive.
Yeah, forgive me for being rude.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
But who have I made fun of in this?
Yeah, I don't think anybody.
I didn't make fun of the
You've been
Stockholm.
very polite and very nice.
Oh, maybe I should stop.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So I was thinking about like how culture influences the language as well. I mean, look, for instance, like Inuits, they have like, I don't know, tons of words for snow. I don't know how many, but like it's like over 40, I think.
Yeah, this is a legend.
Yeah.
I think there is some truth to that and some exaggeration to that.
Yeah, that's kind of where, that's kind of where I land on that too. But it's an interesting thing though, because obviously snow must be very important for people who lives in a snow-covered world.
Right, but part of the year you and I live in a snow-covered world too, right? And we do have lots of ways to talk about it, right?
We do.
Can you drive on that?
Yeah.
Or can you not?
Yeah.
Right?
Is that wet snow, as you say? Is it blöt snow, or is it powder snow? Or
right.
So,
or
but
is it packed or is it not?
Yeah.
So so I think one important thing to realize is when you talk about like this language has 40 words for snow, well, maybe they do, but we can talk about snow in all the same ways they can. We just may need more words to do it.
Yeah.
So a language may have a more, if you will, efficient way of communicating about one particular thing, but it doesn't mean we can't make those distinctions.
Okay.
So,
but are there any like such special cultural features in Old Norse that you can pinpoint?
maybe. So there's a few different ways to go about this. One is you can find a lot of domains of life where Old Norse has lots and lots of words. You can also find such domains in English or Swedish, right? I mean, for just about everything, we have multiple ways to say it. House versus residence, right? Battle, fight, right? These might have different shades of meaning, but they can kind of translate one another. In Old Norse, very often you have domains where there are words of a bewildering variety for what seems like the same thing, but they might have had slight differences back then that we can't quite see. I mean, one of those domains is battle.
Yes.
Right? So in skaldic poetry or in Eddic poetry, when they talk about people fighting all the time, we find just multiplicities of words for it, right? Gunnar, Hildar, Vig, right? What are the exact shades of difference there? Orusta, another one. Well, I don't know, but it seems like most of the time poets choose these words to alliterate with the other words in their poem.
Oh.
So they have this huge variety of words that may not be there for distinguishing between different shades of meaning, but more to fit into the poetic structures that they need.
Yes.
I mean, in the same way, we would choose different words to rhyme, right? If we're writing poems or a song. And then there are some domains where I think there's some, and I keep using this word domain, but I mean like a domain of reference, right? So battle might be a domain that we talk about. And then color is, I think, a really interesting domain of reference because different languages have very different ways of talking about color. One of my favorite examples is, now I'm looking around for stuff, right? So what is the color of the ear or the tongue on the animal here on this chair?
Yeah. See, I would say, and this is very Swedish, faluröd.
Okay.
Yeah.
But is that a kind of röd?
It is it's a kind of red nuance that you get from a very specific type of house paint.
Okay.
It's very distinct to Swedish.
Okay.
Yeah.
But is it a kind of red?
It is a kind of red.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's a kind of red. Now, what about on this shield? What's this color?
That would be more, I would say, blood red or dark red.
But is it a kind of red?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in some languages, that's not the same color.
Yeah.
Okay. You and I see the difference.
Yeah.
And we can describe the difference. In fact, you have a very Swedish word for one of them, but there's still kinds of red.
Yes.
So in some languages, though, those are not both kinds of one color. Those are two different colors, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Just like green and blue are different for us.
Yes.
But in some languages, green and blue are one.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So for us, calling both of these red, that would not make sense to speakers of all languages. Potentially Hungarian, but I don't think that's quite the difference between the two red words in Hungarian.
Yeah.
But so in Old Norse, interestingly, they don't have a separate word for yellow.
Okay.
Excuse me. The best way to put this is they don't have a separate category for yellow. Yellow is a kind of red still.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you cannot describe yellow.
Yeah.
But it means that you can call yellow things red. Just like I can call that red, but if you ask me to describe it in more detail, I can give you terms that describe it in more detail, right? I can say blood red or something.
Yeah.
So the same way, they can say like daisy red
Okay.
to say yellow.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So, that's something that I think shows a different way of looking at the world a little bit. It's maybe not as intriguing as 40 words for snow or something like that, but it means that they're looking at something like gold and actually seeing a red thing, right? So, famously, we talk about red gold in Old Norse. Actually, there's a lot of old languages that do that. But because gold is red to them, right? Does that mean when they say Thor is red-haired that he's golden-haired?
Yeah.
It could mean that.
And there's another aspect of that, I think, from the Viking Age, where they call Africa blue land.
Yeah, and African people are blue men. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That is a really interesting one that may have to do with the sheen of very dark skin. And I think, so often the way they apply colors to people is based on their hair color. So Eric the Red, right?
Red-haired.
Yeah. Or King Halfdan the Black, right? I think maybe the use of blue is because saying black or brown would have sounded like they were talking about hair.
Okay.
I think that may be why they used a different term.
Okay.
There's a lot of interesting things about the way they use blue, though. They tend to use it for really shiny, dark things, even if we don't see the blue quite as much. But they do use it for blue.
But then again, if you look at a raven, for instance.
Ravens are the perfect example.
And they do have a blue kind of shimmer to their feathers. So
yeah, I tell people this all the time because translators often won't translate Old Norse blue, blår, as blue because they say, well, but they call ravens blue, so it must mean black. No, it still means blue. They've just looked at a raven.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an excellent example.
Oh, wow. It's really, really fascinating. So how complete is the Old Norse vocabulary then? Because obviously, it's a dead language in many ways.
I think we have a pretty complete picture. We have so much written Old Norse literature that I don't think there's really much that we're lacking. Now and then, basically, reading a saga, I'll come across a word that I've never seen before, but usually I can look it up and find that, that occurs 10 or 12 other places. I just forgot it.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anybody in the world who has a 100% complete Old Norse vocabulary in their head. There could be somebody out there.
Maybe you should write a dictionary.
Oh my gosh. I've thought about it.
Really?
Yeah. Have you ever used any of the Old Norse dictionaries that exist?
No.
There is a problem with each one of them.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, like it could be useful. That maybe as a project for the future.
Yeah.
But it's a very, you could make a big dictionary, and people have made a big dictionary of Old Norse. And there's not much that you could talk about in modern English or Swedish that you couldn't talk about in Old Norse. Obviously, technology, right? You know, I don't know what they would call a computer. Okay, you know, that's obvious.
Helva, perhaps.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Right, which is a cool Icelandic neologism
I think
for
it's
it.
awesome.
I love what they do in Iceland with new words. I can tell you some of my favorites.
Yeah.
But
Snurting is one of my favorites.
what is that?
Toilet.
Oh, okay. Well, this is why, yeah. So you see,
Sorry.
no.
I went straight there. Okay, sorry about that.
So side note, the same thing happens to me in Icelandic that happens to me in Swedish. I know these languages from books, right? And those books tend to be either about the language or they're from 150 years ago.
Yes.
So I sound like a weirdo, right? Like on top of the accent, it's like, what time machine did you kind of, you know? I mean, I always, like, I'm pretty sure the first conversation I ever had in Swedish, I said, you know, Jiva, and instead of ye.
Yes.
And like, because just what I'm used to seeing.
Yeah, it's a very, very old way of saying it. Yes.
Yeah.
So, sorry, going back to like the technology words, like you would then, if you spoke Old Norse, you would have to invent words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's probably some other places where you'd be surprised at how hard it is to say some things in Old Norse. People ask me to translate stuff for them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it'll be, well, I mean, actually I've been asked for your lyrics, right? For example.
Yeah.
And modern song lyrics are hard often because they just don't talk about the same stuff the same way, right? So think about Havamal with all the good advice it has for daily practical life. It doesn't say, for example, have courage, right? That's not how they talk about the stuff.
No.
They say instead, a courageous man does this or that. It's much more concrete. They don't really talk about the abstract concept itself very much. So for example, out of Havamal, people have derived this modern list of 9 virtues, so courage, wisdom, etc. And that list of 9 virtues just doesn't look to me at all like the way Old Norse speakers would talk about this. Instead, they talk about it like in Havamal. They give you these examples. A wise man does this, an unwise man does that.
Yeah.
Not have wisdom, have courage.
Yeah.
Right.
It's interesting that you say like that the abstract, that they don't like the abstract is not there. Because I read this book, and this is like going slightly off topic, but I read this book about a Norwegian resistance man during the Second World War who went back to Norway, and it was a complete disaster. Everybody died except him, and he managed to escape, and he had to go north and try to get back in Sweden. And the way that the local people tried to help him was to get the Sami people to take him across, because they could move across the border freely. But they couldn't get the Sami people to commit to it, because they said, well, can you do this in 2 weeks? And they said, we can't know that.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't answer that now.
Yeah.
Because that's like in 2 weeks, we don't know the situation.
Right.
So the abstract way of thinking was not there for them. I imagine that has changed for the Sami people since then, because they've been more integrated into the Scandinavian culture in many ways. But is that a similar thing you see in?
Well,
when it comes to the abstract, I mean,
I think it's not. One thing I have to make clear is it's not the capacity to think about abstraction. It's the inclination to think about abstraction.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right. I can make up a word courage in Old Norse. It just surprises people that you don't see it much in Old Norse books. You'll see the word brave a lot, but not the word courage, because there's just, as a culture, they're not sitting around talking about abstractions very much, but they will talk about this brave man, right? But why would you sit around in a culture like this and just talk about courage? Like, well, where is that? Point out that, right?
Yeah.
These are people who really aren't literate.
No.
Even the ones.
That man sitting there is brave because he did all these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. There's a reference to a physical act.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what it is. It's not that you couldn't come up with a way to talk about it. It's that they're not inclined to.
I see. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I think, in a similar way, it's actually surprisingly hard to get a word that satisfyingly sounds a lot like honor in terms of all of its connotations. I can come up with words that kind of hit close to the mark, but that word is so loaded with so many cultural notions in English. And in Old Norse, I think it's much more, you'd be likely to say, well, this is a man who is, he's a drengur, right? Or he's brave, or he's tough, or all these things. Like, you list out those attributes. You never really talk that much about the abstract, like he has this thing.
Yeah.
He is this thing.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah. So continuing on the vocabulary, and you say that you often come across words that you say, what is this word? And then you have to look it up. Are there any Old Norse words that we know about that we don't actually know what they mean?
Yeah. In the Poetic Edda, the text that I stare at the most.
Yeah.
And I mean, I stare at it at least a few hours a day. There are words that, the term we have in linguistics is a hopox. So a word that occurs one time. Hopox is Greek for once. And if a word occurs only one time, you're kind of in danger, because any argument that you make about what it means is a little bit circular, right?
It could be a typo.
It could, exactly.
Yeah.
And there are lots of typos, right? Because these documents are all copies from something else.
Yes.
And even the first copy is a copy from what somebody said orally. So there's always lots of chances for error. And let me think, is there an individual word that I can think of where I don't know what it means? I would have to think about that a little bit. I'm sure there is. And it would probably be somewhere in the Poetic Edda.
Well, maybe we can come back to that if you figure out what it is.
I feel like it's knocking on my mind's door here.
Yeah.
There is something in there. Okay, yeah, actually, here's a good example.
All right.
Just took a second. Thulur.
Thulur.
Thorn, U-L-R.
All
right. This is a very interesting word. So it's related to thilja, a verb that means to murmur. But it's a noun, and it's a noun that Odin attributes to him. Odin calls himself a thulur. And in Havamal, he says you shouldn't laugh at an old thulur. And a jotun is one time called in gamle thulur, the old thulur. In Old English, we have a cognate word, thilla, thorn, Y-L-E, and Hrothgar's assistant, to use a very modern term, is Unferth, who is his thilla. So what does it mean?
Yeah.
So it's related to a verb that means something like speak, murmur.
Yeah.
But it seems to be like a high office, because Odin is Fimbulthulr. He's like the ancient Thulr. So how should we translate this? Is it orator, right? Is it someone who speaks formally?
Yeah.
Is it an old word for perhaps someone who has a special command of spoken language, or maybe even written language? Maybe it's an old word associated with rune carvers. But we don't exactly know what shade of meaning this word had. It seems like even when they're writing it down in Old Norse, that it's talking about a stage of the society that's already passed. Kind of like today, I might talk about, I don't know, what's an old-fashioned sounding job? I don't know. Lady in waiting or something, right? I don't really know what that means, but yeah.
Like in Swedish, I guess one word that I always kind of is like a marskalk. I know what it is. I know what to do, but it's like, but what is the word?
Marskalk?
Yeah.
Oh, so
it's an office that you have, like the king has his closest like man is the marskalk.
So that's from horse servant, marskalk.
Yeah.
So it obviously has nothing to do with horses now.
No.
Because it's English marshal.
Yeah.
Right? The guys
exactly. It's the same word.
Yeah. The guys who track down fugitives.
Yeah.
And in some countries, that's a word for like a general.
Yeah.
So it went from horse, probably the guy who tends your horses,
to
all these different directions.
Yeah. So for me, it's a weird word for that.
Yeah. No, it is.
Yeah.
Well, but we have so many of those, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what does podcast mean?
Yeah.
Right? Why is it a pod? I think it's a pod because of the ear pods you used to put in, right?
Yeah.
So, like, how would you guess that?
Yeah.
So very often with something like Old Norse, we're in a position to say, like, how would I guess what this means? Because sometimes I can say, okay, Thuler, that's related to this other word, but to figure out exactly why it means whatever it means, that's often a little bit tough.
Yeah.
And then another problem that you can get is things can get named after somebody's name, and then you really have no idea what it means.
Yeah.
Right? So like, for example, today you might call somebody a quisling.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
And I know exactly what that means, but I guess most people won't, at least.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I think it's actually fairly common in English too.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like, how would you ever guess what it means? Because it has nothing to do with the word quisling.
No.
Right? It has to do with the history of a guy named Quisling.
Exactly.
And we don't know that they didn't do that back then.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, it's super interesting. So we spoke about the Edda, and you translated many old manuscripts to modern English. The Eddas are among them, obviously, and the Saga Volsungs, for instance. Which has been the most challenging to translate?
Oh, well, this question is fresh on my mind because I just finished the second edition of the Poetic Edda.
All right.
And I revised everything.
Oh, wow.
It is like, it's a new book in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I went through, and this is part of why I've been staring at all of these poems for hours a day for months and months. There are a lot of really hard texts there. So in a way, there's many different answers, but one of the answers truly is Voluspa, one of the most read poems. It is so elusive. The poet thinks we know these stories. So they are not painted in any detail. They are just slapped up on the wall, beautifully slapped up on the wall, but with the assumption that you can guess from my abstract painting the specific story that is in here.
Yeah.
I mean, it is even hard to tell sometimes if all the stanzas are in the right order.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, I don't dare.
That's actually something I thought about when I read that. It feels like it's some of them are shuffled around.
Yeah, I agree. The more I read it, the more I think this may not actually be in the right order.
Yeah.
I don't dare reorder it.
No, of course not.
Right. I don't feel like that's my business. Like that's something that I think is important to say. Like, I don't feel entitled to mess with it, but I think it might have been messed with.
Yeah.
Right. Not deliberately, just that someone didn't remember it exactly right.
Yeah.
Because we have 2 manuscripts of Voluspa, and they don't have all the stanzas in the same order.
Oh, wow.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder which one I have read.
You've probably read, most people read a mix of the 2.
Oh, okay.
Because most editors and translators take both and combine them. I translate them separately. So I translate the Koningsbok, the oldest manuscript text, and then I have a separate section in the new Poetic Edda with the stanzas that only come from the other one, the Hauksbok text. But because neither manuscript puts them in exactly the same order, and both have stanzas the other doesn't have, probably neither represents the original poem. Now, again, I don't feel entitled to tell you what that original was. I just don't think either one is it exactly.
Okay. So like, why is that? Do you think could they have been censored?
No, I don't really think that it's that, because if you were going to censor it, why not censor the whole thing?
Yeah.
Right. If you don't want to hear about pagan gods, just don't talk about pagan gods.
Yeah.
Why dance around it?
That's kind of true. Yeah.
That's always been kind of my feeling about it. I think most of the time when you get something close to a Christian censorship or something like that it's really Snorri Sturluson in the prose Edda not fully understanding that the old religion was not as organized. It didn't have a canon in the way that Christianity did. He wants to make all the stories work together when they don't necessarily all go together. But I don't think that there's really that much censorship. I mean, in the poem Grógaldur, there's a mother who casts a spell to protect her son from Christian women. Right? Like, actually dead Christian women, whatever exactly that means.
Yeah.
Like, it just, I think there may occasionally be stanzas that get left out. I think that actually the most likely place there is in Hávamál at the end when he brags about all the spells that he knows.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't teach any of them.
Ah, yeah, of course.
right? And then he gets to the last one and he says, I'll never teach anybody this one. And I always think, well, he didn't teach us the last 17. So, like, you know, potentially there was a period when those were transmitted with the spell. But I don't know. I don't think in Volaspell there's really anything censored exactly. I think that it's that people don't remember it.
Yeah.
Because when this stuff is written down, it's already being forgotten. That's why it's written down.
Yeah. But like, obviously there are parts of the Edda as well that are missing, that have been like destroyed, or like, I don't know, are just missing for some reason.
Yeah. More missing than destroyed. Although we do have,
or ruined maybe is the better word for it.
Yeah. We have 16 pages that were ripped out of the Codex Regius, the Poetic Edda, and we don't know what's on there. Probably stuff about the Volsungs, but
yeah. So have you ever thought about, like, is there any way you can recreate like the meaning at least behind what's missing? Or
yeah, we can guess at some of what's missing. For example, Snorri and the prose Edda tells a lot of stories that he must have gotten from old poems. So we can often guess, well, there was a more detailed poem about Baldur's death than the ones we have.
Yeah.
There was a poem about Odin and about Thor and Loki visiting Utgartha-Loki, right? And Thor getting tricked into drinking the ocean and all of this, right? That's based on an old poem. Sometimes we can kind of see from the stories he tells the poems that we don't have. And then also sometimes we get these hints in poems about stories that we've never seen anywhere. For example, Heimdallr says he has 9 mothers.
Oh, yeah.
We have multiple sources for that. What does it mean? Snorri quotes one time a poem called Heimdallargaldr, Heimdall's Magic, and it's just Heimdall saying, I have 9 mothers. Where is that poem? Did it explain what 9 moms means? Right? You know, did they give birth to him successively, or like did they give birth to pieces of him? What does it mean? Right? It never spells that out.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to know, because it's a pretty weird mystery.
It is kind of. But is there a sense of completing like a poem with, like, all right, this is what the poem says, but these missing lines would probably have gone somewhere along this line, just to understand it better?
Sometimes. Well, since the poetry is alliterative, sometimes if a line is missing, you can guess what word might have alliterated. I mean, it's not perfect, because, you know, just like in English, if I'm missing a line in a poem and I know it ended with something that rhymes with love, that could have been above or glove or whatever, dove. But sometimes from context, you can guess probably what that was.
Yeah.
Not always. There are a few places where stanza has been kind of ruined in transmission because it wasn't remembered correctly. Like there's a stanza in Hávamál that begins, of little sands, of little seas, little are the minds of men. And it's like, what's of little sands, of little seas? What is that about? You know, something's wrong there, right? That wasn't transmitted right.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to guess what the right thing would have been.
It's interesting that they actually made the effort to do this, though.
Yeah.
But still kind of got it wrong. But
well, I think what you've got is with the copying of the manuscript, the Codex Regius, I think part of what you've got is somebody who did want this preserved. And I don't know who that was, but I think the person that he hired to write it didn't care as much.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think that it's the person who desperately cares about this, who's making as many mistakes as are made in that manuscript. I think it's a hireling, right? It's somebody's evening job.
Yeah.
And you can tell sometimes the scribe gets bored.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I think you can. I think there's pages where you can tell this guy was half asleep. Like Fafnismál, when Sigurður's fighting Fafnir, there's so many mistakes in that poem. It's like this guy was half asleep, right? It's like, actually, you can sometimes see in medieval manuscripts their handwriting gets worse as they're getting more tired.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're human just like we are.
Of course.
And even if they're good stories, if you're on sleep's door. You know?
I can watch a good movie at home in my couch and it's like, I fall asleep. So,
totally.
It happens.
Totally. But I always try to kind of reframe it. And, you know, people say, oh, there's so much we've lost. And I think, but we're super, super lucky that we have what we have.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I totally agree with that. It's insane. So what's your favorite manuscript or what's the favorite that you worked on?
Well, favorite manuscript, definitely the Codex Regius, the Poetic Edda.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. It's simple in a way. It doesn't have a lot of decorations, but the handwriting is so clear.
Yeah.
I've seen it a few times. Most recently in 2022 with Gisli Sigurðsson at the University of Iceland. It always kind of inspires me to see the original thing and think this piece of writing, was put on parchment 800 years ago. Parchment, vellum, a calfskin. But
exactly, they're made of calfskin, aren't they?
Yeah, which is why they have to save space so much and use all the abbreviations. Yeah, but my favorite text remains Havamal. I mean, I just think that the practical advice in it is...
I love Havamal.
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful.
I revisit it multiple times a day, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, I always learn something from it. And it puts things in such a memorable way. Part of it is that concrete way of talking about the advice that it gives, right? You can tell somebody, be thrifty or whatever. But if you make a little story about it, and talk about how dumb this guy who wasn't thrifty was, right? Like that makes it so much more memorable.
Yeah,
right?
and relatable, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but the old manuscripts, they're written are they written in Latin?
Well, not these. These are in Old Norse.
Oh, they are.
But they're in the Latin alphabet.
They're okay.
Right. Same alphabet we use today. Yeah. Now they use runes as abbreviations for some words. So most notably, lots of Old Norse manuscripts, including in Sweden too, use the M rune to stand for man, because it's called maður, man. So you see that, but no, it's written in the rune.
Actually, that's what I meant. Latin alphabet.
Yeah, Latin alphabet.
Yeah. Of course, not written in Latin. How would you be able to study Old Norse if they were?
Yeah. Well, and that's something we're lucky about too, because you think about somebody like Saxo Grammaticus in the early 1200s, writing in Denmark. He writes in Latin. And he sometimes quotes poems, but he turns them into Latin, so we don't know the Old Norse text.
Typically Danish people.
Yeah, it's definitely typical medieval Danish people.
Yeah, I'm just joking. I love the Danes too. Sorry about that. I'm insulting all my Scandinavian neighbors now.
Still got to get Iceland in there.
Well, I love Iceland. I love Denmark and Norway too. Amazing countries.
Should I go on record saying this?
All right. Yeah. I mean, this is absolutely fascinating. I'm actually looking forward to reading the new edition of the Edda.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I'm actually kind of curious. Because one thing that I almost forgot is like that I kind of wanted to ask is. I mean, obviously, the Edda has so many translations over the years. So, what do you feel it's important to make new revisions and new translations into English?
Well, I think that there's room for many different reasons to translate, and I feel like the early translations largely were made for a very different audience than today's audience. They were made for people who spent a lot of time with English poetry. And not a lot of people read poetry now. So if you have a translation that uses weird word order and all kinds of words that people aren't familiar with anymore, it just washes over people typically.
Yeah.
Right. My translations come from when I was teaching at universities, and I wanted people to have something they could just read. Right.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to call attention to itself, because if people are asking me, what's a Bernie, right? What's a maid, right? All these words that we just don't use anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's distracting them from the purpose, which is understand this Old Norse story. This isn't about English poetry, right? Now, I am, by some standards, a poet in the English language, but I'm a very different kind, right? I use contemporary American English and free verse. So I turn it into something that looks like, fairly normal English, because I don't want you to notice the translation, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't want you to think, if this may sound like a strange goal, but in a way, I don't want you looking at my translation and saying, this is beautiful.
Yeah, okay.
I want you to understand the story.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to maybe intrigue you to go and look at the Old Norse. Right. And one of my special goals with the second edition too has been that you can take the Old Norse and see where I got the English. Right. There are a few places where I was a little looser in the first edition, trying to get something that made sense, sounded good. And now if there's something that's kind of confusing and strange, it's like, well, I'm going to leave it that way. Right. And then you can go look at the original and say, oh yeah, this is confusing and strange.
Yeah.
Now, today there's a variety of different translations available. Of course, one that mine is often compared to is Carolyn Larrington's. Carolyn is at the University of Oxford, one of the top scholars in the field. Her translation is aimed more at people who are interested in Old Norse per se.
Okay.
Mine is more, you may have never heard about who Odin and Thor are. Here's their stories.
Oh, okay.
Right. I want this to be accessible.
Straight from the source, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want anyone to be able to pick it up. Right. I often say that my target audience has always been my grandma.
Okay. That's very narrow, but yeah.
Yeah, well, but she's a good representative of who I'm aiming at, because it's my grandma, or it's also an undergrad student.
Yeah.
But but they're kind of the same, right?
Yeah.
They're intelligent, curious people who have never heard of the Edda, right? And that's really who I want to reach. I want you to be able to pick that up, read that book, and know a lot about Norse mythology, and not a lot about me as a poet.
Yeah.
Right.
That's an admirable goal, I think. That's kind of cool.
That's what I shoot for. The point is to bring those original stories, not my personality and my, language, but to bring those original stories further into the future and make them part of more people's lives now.
Yeah.
To make the original text itself more approachable. If ultimately you pick it up in Old Norse, then great. But I want you to have something that makes sense in your daily language.
Yeah, and at least you'll have the knowledge then.
Yeah.
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 That's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's what I shoot for.
Yeah. So moving on a little bit from Eddas and books, you have a very successful YouTube channel.
Is that the term for it? Very successful?
It is, because you have over 300,000 followers. I mean, that's pretty big.
It's not quite 300,000. It's close to 300,000.
Okay. Well, still.
Yeah.
That's pretty big.
It's all right.
Yeah.
It's not PewDiePie.
Yeah. So, but still, how did this journey begin?
I was teaching at Berkeley in 2016, and I was making $1,600 a month, and I was paying $1,200 a month for rent.
Ooh.
And so I was trying out second jobs, and I got a job as one of the reenactors on a 19th century sailing ship. And yeah, it wasn't a great fit. And I'm driving back from this and thinking to myself, I know more about one of the most popular things in the world than anyone else in the world who is actually willing to talk to people about it.
Yeah.
Right?
I hear you.
It's like, I know more about this than anybody else who won't gatekeep it, basically. Yeah. Why can I not make a living off of it? Why am I, screaming R at, bored teenagers on a sailing ship? So I read a book about like digital education and, branding and all of this stuff. And because I thought maybe, will I do like a podcast or a blog or a YouTube channel or something? And the reason I did video was it said that people trust someone they can see more than someone they can just hear. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was what made me decide to make videos instead of just...
That makes sense.
I think it does.
Yeah.
And so originally I just made them in my office at Berkeley. And then I went home to Wyoming for a Christmas break or something, and made some videos along the way with, just mountain backgrounds, and people said, oh, wow, that's cool. Like, where is that? Or then, of course, there's people who think it's a green screen because they think it's like, no, the Rockies are real.
Yeah, they do exist. Yeah. I've seen them.
Yeah. It's like, no, this isn't an illusion. I wouldn't know how to make the illusion, actually. Yeah. You hear the wind in the mic. It's real. But I said, oh, I should be doing this out in the mountains. And so then when I moved home to Wyoming, so Colorado, I call them both home. I mean, they border each other.
They do.
I just started making all of them outside. And that just became the brand. I go out and talk about Norse mythology in front of mountains. And, I often wear a cowboy hat, but that is not
Yes.
so weird there.
No,
So,
no, it's very common.
yeah,
Yeah.
as you can attest.
Yes.
Some people think it's some kind of weird affectation, but actually part of the point is that I'm not affecting something, right?
Mm.
Like I could dress like that,
Yeah.
right? And I think some people would like that better, but it's not really me.
Yeah.
I don't normally fight axe wielding guys. So I figure that actually showing that there's not an attempt at being something else,
Yeah.
that I'm just the weirdo that I am. I feel like in a way what I'm trying to do is reassure people.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to be something in particular. Like you can just take an interest in this.
Mm.
And I just look like some moron. Right? And you can too.
Your words, not mine. Just kidding.
Yeah. No. Well, I remember someone said in Iceland once, like, I cannot believe that you're speaking Icelandic to me because you look like the last person on the planet who would speak Icelandic.
Okay.
Like, okay.
Wow.
Yep. Like, I guess that's a compliment ultimately.
Is it? Well, maybe. Yeah.
It's like, but I kind of get
It's
it.
a
right?
roundabout way to getting to the compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you, like, in your channel, do you, like, take requests?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
What are the most requested topics?
Well, probably the number one request is translate my tattoo.
Oh, okay.
But in terms of actual topics,
So someone has, like, chicken soup and runic.
yeah, probably. I don't really take the requests these days. I mean, I do from Patreon sometimes, but
Yeah.
it's just too much, right? And
Yeah.
and often it's like, just Anyway, it's often tough stuff to translate, no matter what.
Okay.
Pretty sure I helped somebody get your face and name tattooed on themselves.
That happened.
Yeah, that still haunts me.
Yeah, it's also ultimately, I guess, a compliment.
Yeah.
But
Speaking of ultimately a compliment,
Yes.
but
Yes.
that kind of love usually turns into hate. So
Yeah.
watch out.
Yeah, I know, but it's crazy. But I love the people love what we do. So that's,
Same. But, but I think actually topic wise, surprisingly, people ask about the language way more than you would think.
Okay.
I think my top 10 videos are all still language related videos.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I often talk about all kinds of topics in myth or sagas or history or anything like that. But I think because there are not as many resources for the language, that anytime that I get into, well, here's an interesting difference between Old and Modern Icelandic, or, here's a little bit more information about how Old Norse might have been pronounced here or there, or, let's even go back all the way to Proto-Indo-European. And I do a lot of interviews with linguists who study every language stage along the way. That stuff gets a lot of views, surprisingly.
That's cool. I was thinking that do they ask more about writing or speaking? But that's kind of a weird question. So
No, runes, runes get asked about a lot. And, it's funny. I can tell that every time I'm reaching lots of new people because I hear the same complaints lots of times.
Of course. Yes. Yeah.
Like, that's not what Icelandic sounds like. Well, I know this is supposed to be Old Icelandic, not Modern Icelandic. Or another one is with runes, because people want Elder Futhark, right? If you Google, and this is becoming more and more of a problem with AI, because now, you Google and you just get a result that says, like, here's what AI summarizes runes as, and it will always be 24-letter Elder Futhark. People don't realize that's not what was used for Old Norse.
Yes.
Right? It's that 16-letter Younger Futhark. It's one of the great things Grimfrost does, by the way, is, just looking at your shirt, right?
Yeah.
Is using Younger Futhark.
Yes.
Yeah.
With stung runes and all that.
Well, which is, perfectly historical.
Yeah. So which like clip or has generated the most surprising response, would you say?
Well, that goes both ways, because, I mean, you know how this is when you have a fan base. Like, you sometimes kind of think your fans, and it's like, they're going to love this.
Yes.
Right. And then they don't. It's like,
but let's say, like, which one blew people's mind the most?
Yeah, right. Because it goes the other way too.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, this is just a throwaway, and then it blows up.
Yeah.
Like, what happened?
Yeah.
Right. Like, I made a video about the word and once.
Okay.
And it blew up, right? And it took me 3 minutes to put together. And I'm thinking, what? Or I was in Norway a few years ago, and I was at the National Library of Norway. And with a scholar there, we looked at the oldest preserved book from Norway.
Yeah.
Really cool. But it was a very short talk. There's not a ton to say about this book. We said everything kind of was to say. And I thought, oh, this is a nice video, but, it's going to get a couple thousand views. And I just edited it on the bus when I was headed to see Arva, actually. And I threw it up and it just blew up.
But so you do a short video about the word "and."
Yeah.
So what blew people's mind about it?
I don't know. Right? Because I have 1,000 other videos about 1,000 other words.
Yeah.
Right? So why this one?
So nobody's people
they do,
watch it, but
they do, but it's like the comment is cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
thumbs up.
So
Yeah.
it's not, I came here through an elaborate story that I will recount.
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen. So I'm often just kind of left with
very funny.
guess.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll put up one video about, that word on Monday, and then I'll put up another video about another word on Friday and say, all right, this is what the people want. And then, it doesn't happen again.
Nobody cares.
What?
Yeah. It's
What happened? Why?
It's the wrong word.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh, wow.
So people out there, tell me what words you want.
Yeah.
Just come right out and tell me, and I will do it.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
But the video about the book then, I mean, obviously people must have been fascinated by this historical artifact and the content and everything. So that kind of makes a little bit more sense, I would assume.
And I'm not saying it's not fascinating.
Yeah.
I make these videos because I think they are fascinating. But, sometimes you think you have kind of a sense like, well, this won't excite people the same way, but I want to do it. I want the information to be out there. And then you realize, oh, this information wasn't there, I guess. And so people are like, wow, the oldest book in Norway. That's really neat.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can see it at the National Library of Norway.
Yeah. So what's the most common questions you get about Old Norse? And do people ask you stuff apart from how do you spell this for my tattoo, or because you already mentioned that, but let's put it this way: what are the most interesting questions you get from people?
Well, in terms of frequent, I think the most frequent question about the language might be, how do we know what it sounded like?
Yeah,
kind of. And you asked something sort of like that.
Yeah.
And by the way, the answer is mostly rhymes and alliteration. What rhymes with what helps us tell what sounds they distinguish from what. There's the first grammarian who wrote in the 1140s. We don't know his name. We just call him the first grammarian. But he wrote a book about the sounds of Old Icelandic at his time, which is extremely helpful. And then there's triangulation from the modern languages, right? What plausible sound is the ancestor of this in Swedish, this in Norwegian, this in Danish, and this in Icelandic? So a combination of those.
Yeah.
Most interesting questions? I mean, I'm so interested in how this language changed over time. And so I always get really interested when people make the distinction between the Old Norse of our documents of the 1200s, 1300s, and the Old Norse of, say, the 900s, when a lot of these poems are probably composed, or say the difference between Old Icelandic, where we have a very large amount of documentation, or Old Swedish, where we have less. Right, I'm always interested in these fine-grained distinctions between language at the same time, or between earlier and later stages of the same language. And I get great questions about that. And sometimes they're questions where I think to myself, I don't know.
Yeah.
And often...
I was going to ask it, can you give them answers?
Yeah, sometimes I can't. But sometimes my answer is, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I go try to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then sometimes those rabbit holes are fascinating because of what they'll lead me to.
Yeah. Do you feel that these questions help you in your work?
Yep. Because if I can't answer your question, I should find out how to, is my attitude. If it's, if you ask me, are there aliens in space? I'm like, well, okay, I don't know how to answer that. Yeah.
But about Old Norse, obviously.
Right.
So no ideas.
Yeah. Right. But I do feel like it's my responsibility as someone who's putting himself out there as almost the public face of this language, that if I can't answer your question, well, maybe I've just never thought about it. Maybe I don't know a good source for that right now, but I'll go try to figure it out. And sometimes that will lead me down very long paths before I can figure out an answer. But for example, just teaching on Zoom, these Old Norse classes that I have since early 2024, we often come up in poems on these words, these little words, and ov, that nobody translates. They're just assumed to be kind of fillers.
Mm.
But then I read a note in a book by Johan Helgason from the 1960s, this Icelandic scholar, where he said these words occur where prefixes that Old Norse has lost used to occur. So where you have the same word with a prefix in Gothic, a prefix like ga or b, or like in German g, b, right? Gegeben or bezahlen or something like that. Those prefixes are lost in Old Norse, and these words replace those. And then I just went down this crazy rabbit hole of figuring out, is this true? And yeah, it's true. And it's really interesting that, Old Norse actually maintains these distinctions using new words. And just most people, this kind of, including me for a long time, just kind of gone over the head of. And then all of a sudden you realize, there's actually a pattern to this. There's a meaning to this. These change the meaning of these words.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's something that I've learned in the last 6 months. Right?
That's super fascinating. So all these questions actually can lead you to new discoveries. That's great.
Yeah, you teach me by asking me.
Yeah.
Because you ask me things, and if I'm honest, and I want to be honest, and I don't know, I'm going to say, I don't know, and I'm going to try to figure it out. I'm not the god of Old Norse, right? And I think that you would have a real problem trying to present yourself as, I am the god of this subject, right? And just not being able to admit that you don't know something or could make a mistake about something. I am in service, such a weird way of putting it, but I'm in the service of Old Norse.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not in the service of my, I don't know, image or something here, right?
Ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can say I'm wrong because I've been wrong about things, or I have not known things. And
to admit you're wrong is to grow and to learn. So yeah.
I hope so, because I want to grow someday.
Yeah. No, but it's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that that's part of the attitude that I try to bring to this is not, again, I'm standing on a mountaintop handing down the 10 Commandments of Old Norse. It's more like we're on a journey and, maybe I'm the leader out in front of this pack here, but you're going to walk the same trail as I am, and I still have a trail to go, right? There's no destination.
Yeah.
There's not a point at which I'm going to say.
The journey is the purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's not a point at which I'm going to say, I now know every single detail, stamped, it's done. That's never going to happen.
Yeah. So what are the most common misconceptions that people have though?
About the language?
About Old Norse, yeah.
Well, probably the most common is that it must be identical to some modern Scandinavian language, and that usually means Icelandic. Sometimes people think Faroese, and then occasionally you actually run into people who think the Vikings must have been running around speaking Swedish, right? I run into it sometimes. I mean, if you've never thought about language change, I could see it. If you just never thought about the stuff, it's like, oh yeah, they were always speaking what they speak now. Well, no, that's not really how this works, right? Italians spoke Latin 2,000 years ago, and Swedes weren't speaking exactly Stockholm Swedish 2,000 years ago.
No.
So that's probably the most common misconception. And with Icelandic, it comes up because, the grammar of Icelandic is so similar to the grammar of Old Norse that you can tell, oh wow, these are very similar, but they're not identical. And thinking of Old Norse as Icelandic, I think is a little bit dangerous because, I mean, it's not literally dangerous, but it doesn't help you understand the old language as well as you might think because they're idiomatically so different, right? I cannot speak Old Norse to a modern Icelandic speaker and get anything done.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And probably vice versa. When I first visited Iceland a million years ago as a grad student, I did come in, obviously, knowing Old Norse and not as much modern Icelandic. And I was trying to sort of speak modern Icelandic through Old Norse, and it was a little bit of a disaster.
Oh.
It sounds really, really weird.
Yeah.
I learned modern Icelandic as kind of a separate thing, and I think that you have to, because otherwise, with Old Norse, I think keeping it separate and sort of keeping it to medieval, ancient topics and not trying to fill in the blanks from modern languages helps you understand the mindset a little bit better. Now, a lot of people pronounce Old Norse as Modern Icelandic, and that's fine, but I don't think that that's necessarily the best way to get a sense of what the language sounded like or felt like.
But I always had the concept, understanding that Icelandic of the Scandinavian languages was the one that's like is closest to Old Norse structurally, but not pronunciation wise.
Probably not pronunciation wise. Icelandic has a lot of strange pronunciation changes that probably are not features of the old language. I say strange like I'm judging it, but they're unusual changes.
Yeah.
For example, we talked about the LL and TL. So think about it though. If you met a Martian today and the Martian had a word in his language like falla, and you wanted to write down this language in our Roman alphabet, you would probably spell falla, F-A-L-L-A.
Yeah.
Because that's what it sounds like. You would probably not spell it F-A-L-L-A if the Martian said fatla.
No.
So when they first start writing it in the 1100s, presumably they're writing something pretty phonetic because the first time you use an alphabet for a language, you're trying to reflect what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Now, it may change over time, like Swedish has, right? We still write D, dem, even though everybody says dom for both of those. So the language may change after it starts being written down, but there was a stage early on when people said D and dem.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. When it's first written down, it's pretty close to phonetic in the case of most languages.
But I'm actually curious about that because this became like a big thing like a couple of years ago when there was this massive eruption under a glacier on Iceland, the Eyjafjallajökull.
Yeah, Eyjafjallajökull. Yeah, I can say it too.
So fjalla is obviously the same as the Norwegian fjell.
Yeah.
And Swedish we also have fjell, although in Norwegian it just means mountains. Fjell for Swedish is a specific type of mountain.
Yeah.
So there you have the fjell with the double L.
Yep.
And it just fjell.
Yeah.
But then they have fjalla.
Yep. So probably in Old Norse, it's fjall. With the L is held longer. So the double L does mean something, but it's a longer L. Fjall. So in Swedish or Norwegian, that double consonant at the end means the vowel is short.
Yes.
But that's not what it means in Old Norse, because in Old Norse, they mark if the vowel is long or short with the accent mark. So in Old Norse, it's a short vowel and a long consonant, fjall, something like that. The change to TL is a later Icelandic change.
Okay. So does that, I don't even know what the question is now, because I was like, that maybe I understand it, but I couldn't follow with it. Because I was like thinking, does that mean that the Icelandic took fjall and made it a fjalla, because that's how you pronounce double L now?
Fjall.
Yeah, fjall.
Fjalla is the genitive plural.
Yeah.
So fjall is the basic word. Yeah. So that's exactly what happened. So regularly, everywhere you had that long L, it became tla. So you're taking two L's and making the first one a T.
Okay.
But in the same way, Swedish and Norwegian have changed things, right? So what used to be Thor is now Tor.
Yes.
Right? So all the th has become t. The thing that Swedish and Norwegian are a little bit more conservative about than Icelandic is a lot of the vowels are probably a little bit more in their old form. Although Swedish and Norwegian shift a little bit because, long A has become O and long O has become U. So that's a change. But the vowel system is a little more conservative in Swedish and Norwegian. Okay. Yeah. So, but if you think about it this way, two parents have 5 kids. Which kid is the most like the parents? It's usually kind of a subjective question, right? Because they're all clearly descendants of the same 2 parents. Yeah. Neither one, no child is a carbon copy of the parents. And that's the way it is with the Scandinavian languages today. You might say Icelandic looks kind of like strikingly like one of the parents, but it's not identical. It's not the same person.
Yes.
And then, you can look at one of the other kids and say, oh, well, this one has mom's eyes. This one has mom's ears, whatever, right? This one has mom's birthmark. But they're not all going to share all the same features. It's the same way. No currently spoken language is identical to the ancestor language.
Yeah. Yeah. Super fascinating. I love languages. I think it's super interesting just to talk about. But when it comes to going back to your YouTube channel, and your tagline is, well, I guess to summarize this, because it's kind of long, isn't it? But like, real experience, no agendas. Yeah. So what do you mean by that? Like, and why is that important?
Yeah, I think that there's a big movement to try to possess the past, to say the past supports my agenda. This past supports what I want of the present or what I want of the future. The past supports my particular politics, my particular lens on religion, whichever religion we might be talking about. That can be Christianity sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's not why I think we should study the past. I think we should study the past to be informed about it, perhaps to make more informed choices in the present, to learn about the wisdom of people from back then, but we shouldn't turn them into mouthpieces for our present day ideologies, because they're not.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes people ask me, well, how would a Viking vote? It's a strange question, but people ask it, and it's like, buddy, I don't think I could explain 2025 to somebody from 2015.
Yeah.
This is like, how would I explain 2025 to somebody?
Vikings had no concept of voting in that sense that we think of it.
It's like, well, I could transport a Viking to right now, and he would, he'd tell us exactly what to do. It's like, no, he wouldn't understand what electricity was, man. No. This is, you have such different lives.
Yeah.
That I think what you have to do is approach the past humbly, right? Don't approach it as, as something that has all the answers, but approach it as something that has answers that are conditioned by its time.
Yes.
Right. So I'm fascinated by wisdom literature, whether that be Havamal or whether that be wisdom literature from other cultures as well. I think that it's just amazing how well people 100, 800, 1,000, 5,000 years ago understood people.
Yes.
Right. I mean, today we understand maybe nuclear energy in a way they didn't, but they understood people already really, really well.
Yeah. Sometimes better than we do today, because we kind of lost touch with a lot of that stuff.
Yep.
But then again, also our society has changed, so a lot of the stuff that was wisdom for back then is not relevant anymore.
I don't know. I don't think there's that much that isn't that relevant in a way.
I mean, like you just don't, like in Havamal, you don't. Well, maybe not in Havamal, but you just don't kill people, or you know.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, but you still have conflicts.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that with some adjustments for context, really the interactions that are talked about are going to be like the interactions today.
Yeah.
I think maybe today we have two problems that ancient and medieval wisdom literature typically don't have. One thing is we tend to think too scientifically about human interactions. When, you and I interacting, it's not two atoms, right? It's not two elements.
No.
It's two people. And there's not really that much scientific about the way we're going to interact. You can't predict who's going to like who or who's going to not like who. You can't predict who's going to fight about what.
No.
There's not that much you can scientifically say about it. And there's also not that much that you can really ideologically say about it. You can say people shouldn't kill, but that's not really the world anybody's ever going to live in. We're always going to live in a world where there's conflict of one kind or another. So acknowledging those things and not trying to create something perfect, but saying, how do we live the best we can in the world as it is? That's where something like Havamal shines, because Havamal is not about an ideal world.
That's exactly what I always thought. Yeah, I totally agree with you there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes so much sense.
Yeah. And I think, there are so many ideologies that try to capture the past and use it as a flag to wave in the present.
Yeah.
And that's really, I just don't think that's a useful way to look at the past. And I don't think it's a respectful way to look at the past.
I agree with you, because like, who has ownership over the past? I think it's something that we've discussed before on this podcast. And I totally agree with you that if you think about it, the past is no more mine, because it is where my heritage come from, just the Viking past, is not mine just because I happen to be Scandinavian. It is a part of the world heritage in a way.
Yeah.
So I don't care where you're from. If you're interested in Vikings, you have a right to it, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes I encounter the opposite of this. Like, well, you're not Scandinavian, you don't have a right to talk about this. It's like, well, what I can learn about this as well as anybody else can.
Yeah.
I mean,
Probably better than a lot of Scandinavians. So
maybe, I don't know. I don't think that but I don't think that it's necessarily a qualification where you're from. I think you might start off with a little bit more background knowledge if you're Scandinavian, but you can make up for that. It's just sometimes people say, well, because this is connected to my ancestry, I sort of inherently know more about it than you do. It's like, well, show me. What does that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I'm Scottish. It doesn't mean I can play bagpipes better than you, right? Like you have to. We're all kind of our minds.
I'd like to see you try. Actually,
yeah.
We have a bagpipe. No, just kidding.
That would be a great behind the scenes. But you know what I mean? We're mentally blank slates. So like, just, your last name is Anderson and mine is Crawford. It doesn't mean that I automatically have, a skill point in bagpipes.
No.
Or you have automatic skill points in Scandinavian languages. If that were true, all of the Swedish high school and college students or Swedish American high school and college students who show up from Minnesota here every year would speak perfect Swedish.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. All right. We talked a little bit about rune stones as well along the way, but because that is part of like your YouTube channel as well.
Yeah.
So can you tell us like what's the most interesting rune stone that you've covered?
Oh man. Well, past tense, the Rook runestone. So Henrik Williams, who you've had on the show, fantastic guy. We 3 years ago with Arva, we went to the Rook runestone, and he gave a really incredible, just 45-minute experience of just reading that with him there. Was incredible. I mean, that thing is such a mystery, and it's so cool in person, right?
It is.
It's so big and just like it's
massive.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
In a few days, he and I are going to meet at Sparlusa in Västergötland.
Yes.
Yeah. And that one is another just mystery, right? I mean, it's got the most metal image on it of any stone, right? It's got that, it's like, well, right? I mean, it's a serpent choking out a goose and an owl. What is that?
That is pretty cool.
Right?
Yeah.
And
that's insane.
And I asked him, of course, I said, hey, I've read quite a bit about this. Could you send me any literature that I might have missed? And of course, he, sends me on WeTransfer like 18 books about it. So, I've been reading, 200 years of people's opinions about what the stone says, and nobody knows. It is like, here's a word we can figure out, but it's partially a preservation problem.
Yeah.
It's partially apparently a dialect problem. It seems to be in a dialect that's not otherwise known that drops H's, for example.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's several places where it's like, well, it could be this word, it could be that word. There are a lot of questions about the stone.
That's insane. I mean, there's about 3,000 rune stones in Sweden, I think.
That sounds right, but I couldn't swear to the number.
I think that's roughly, anyways. And there are some really odd ones.
Yeah.
I mean, it like what's the strangest runestone that you've come across, like in literature or real life?
Yeah, Sporeless is probably close.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I wonder about there's the Ramsund carving. I think it's around Eskilstuna. Is that right? Or is it Eskilstuna?
I'm not sure I'm familiar with that one, but Eskilstuna is a town not far from here. It's about like 2 hours from where we're right now, towards Stockholm. So,
yeah. It's there's this big flat rock. It's not properly a runestone because it's not a separate stone. It's a big flat rock that has part of the story of Sigurður, the dragon slayer, on it.
I know the one now. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's in pictures. And then the inscription has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
Right? right? I mean, it's just, so and so made this bridge, I think, for the soul of so and so. So it's a completely unrelated inscription to the image, but sometimes those images just fascinate me, right? How would this person have told me this story? Because I look at this, and of course, I'm thinking about the story in the Poetic Edda or the story in the Saga, the Volsungs. I want to know what a Swede around the year 1000, not an Icelander around the year 1250 would have told me this story was.
Yeah.
Because I imagine it would have been fascinatingly different in some ways. That kind of thing always intrigues me. Any images, I always wonder, how is this related to the inscription, and what story would they tell me about this? Right, Gotland is full of those too. Yeah,
they are. Yeah, there's a couple of really cool ones at the Bunga Museum in northern Gotland, Foresund, and it's interesting because they seem to be telling stories, obviously, that are in the Edda and the Volsungs Saga. But you can, like you say, like you can imagine someone standing in front of them and telling this story, and you see the images as well.
Yeah.
So it's like with the imagination that kind of it sparks your thought. Like what was this? Like, did people gather around to see this like spectacle, almost like a theater? But
exactly. I mean, to me. My analogy is I always think these are kind of like movie posters, right? A good movie poster intrigues you about the story. It doesn't tell you the story.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, what is this guy reaching out to this other guy for, right? And I feel like that's what we're seeing there. It suggests the story without exactly narrating.
But it's interesting that the inscription has nothing to do with the rest of the stones. Could it be like a later edition or even an earlier thing? Or
vice versa. Yeah. Which one is first? That's always a problem with stone because you can't date it.
No.
Right? I mean, that's a problem with spotterless. It may have several different layers of inscription on it, and the images may not be contemporary with the text. And that's always an issue with stone for sure. But I think partially it's that maybe a different person is carving the image than is carving the text. Right? You commission someone to decorate it, and you commission someone to write it.
Oh, okay.
That could be a different person, or it could just be that. I mean, this is a little fanciful, but imagine that the person commemorated in the inscription liked this story in the same way that you might bury somebody today with, I don't know, the Lord of the Rings, if they love the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
You may see something like that, where it's like, this story was a story this person told well, or something like that. There could be a relationship like that, I imagine. But no, it's surprising how often inscriptions don't have anything to do with the images that you see on them.
Yeah, stones are fascinating, and I grew up in an area where there are tons of them as well. So,
do you have a favorite?
I think the Rökstone stone is the Rökrune stone is probably my favorite. It's massive, but I also really like the picture stones on Gotland, especially the ones who are still there. The ones at the History Museum in Stockholm are really nice, but they're too neat for me.
Yeah. And taken out of context, it's not as cool. I often feel like the landscape itself tells you something in conjunction with the inscription.
Yeah.
Because, perhaps this was a border marker for someone, right? Perhaps this marked where my land ends and someone else's begins, or my, domain ends and someone else's begins.
Exactly. I think one of the runestones, I may have misunderstood this, but I think this is true because somebody told me that one of the runestones, the picture runestones at the History Museum in Stockholm, is actually from a meadow. It was situated in a meadow in close to where we have our summer house. And when you drive by this meadow in the summertime, especially this time of year, it's hard to describe what that looks like. It looks like looking into the Shire from the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
and you can tell it's been this thing for like many years, probably even back in the Viking Age, and that's where you can clearly imagine the stone in there.
Mm-hmm. Is
This-
it Ardra or Shengvide?
No, Valleviken, close to Lärebro. So
Okay.
it's not far from Foresund. Actually, it's quite close. But at least I've been told that that's where the stone was originally
It's cool.
situated.
And you've got to imagine people appreciated the same natural beauty then
Yeah.
that we do now.
Yes.
You know, it's always intrigued me that in Old Norse texts, you don't get a lot of descriptions of landscape. They seem to sort of take it for granted most of the time.
Mm.
You know, it's really noticeable in Njal Saga when Gunnar falls off of his horse and lands facing his home and suddenly comments on how beautiful the fields and the hillside are, because it's sort of out of nowhere. They never talk about the landscape, but you have to imagine they appreciated it.
Yeah, I mean, I think also is that Njala where he comes back and the river suddenly is wider and he has to jump it. No, wait, he jumps a river but with like pole vaulting over it almost. I think it is Gunnar.
It could be. I don't remember that specifically.
Yeah. Oh well,
But
it might be a different saga as well.
I don't
might
know.
be mixing them up.
Njal Saga is 2,000 pages
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
Like I don't remember everything.
It's fantastic though.
It is.
Yeah. But, yeah.
Robert Cook's translation is recommended if people want to read it in English.
Yes. Good mention actually, because it is one of the books that you should read. I finished it on my third attempt when I decided to disregard the obvious footnotes that didn't really like obviously when there was a word for a weapon or something, you kind of look, all right, what is this kind of weapon? And this was this kind of axe.
Yeah.
Okay, then I know what you're talking about. But then you have all the footnotes with like family trees, basically.
Yes. So my biggest tip, if you were reading the sagas, is first of all, I might have a video about it. So go see if there's a free YouTube video that will tell you these are the characters to pay attention to.
Mm.
Because the hardest thing is you pick it up and it names 80 people.
Yes.
And you say, who on earth do I focus on? Because it may be none of them. You may get 15 chapters about previous generations before your guy's story starts. So what I've often tried to do in videos about the sagas is tell people who to pay attention to. Another thing you should do is keep a notebook or something next to you. Write down the names of people who are important.
Yes.
You will thank me by the time you're done. Because there's so many names.
Yes.
Right.
I could have used that information.
Yeah.
When I first read the Njala and the Egilskallegrimsson Saga and all those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For anybody taking it on for the first time.
Yes.
It's a couple tips.
Very, very good tips for sure.
I mean, I probably didn't understand Njal Saga until I'd read it like 6 times.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I'm not sure I understand most of it still.
Yeah. Maybe.
But I read it about 4 times.
Hmm.
And the first couple of times I didn't even make it through because it was just too many names. It was too confusing. But once I figured out how to read it and just ignore the superfluous, like all the family tree stuff, and it became easier. But
when you see "son of" more than once,
yes, yes,
you can probably ignore it.
Exactly. I mean, we could. This should be a topic for another visit from you, like great Icelandic sagas and literature, and like because we talked for 2 hours now.
Oh, did we? Okay.
Yeah, which has been absolutely amazing. I was like, I looked at our little timer there, and I was like, whoa.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure and an honor.
It has definitely been a pleasure. But before we let you go, we have to end with a couple of questions that we ask all our guests. And I'll just get right through it, straight through it. The first one is, if you could be a fly on the wall during the Viking Age and just not participate, but observe, what specific place or thing would you like to experience?
I'd like to be a fly on the wall the first time that the original poet of Volusball recited it. I'd like to hear what that sounded like from the poet who conceived it as a unity, right? The poet who was not confused about what he had to say, but no one copying him to get words wrong or the order wrong. I'd like to hear that vision from the original source. That's what I would choose.
That's a good answer. But do you think it might be possible that it may be like the original may have been shorter, that it's been added over generations?
Yep. I'd still like to hear that.
Yeah.
Right. I'd like to know what part of this, and of course, since it may not all be from one place, whatever the oldest part of that is, probably the death of Baldur, I'd like to hear what that sounded like from the first poet to say any of those words together.
That's a good answer. I think that would be very interesting as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now comes the really tough one. Would you have wanted to live back in the Viking Age?
No. Well, I think that the main reason is semi-obvious for anyone. I mean, just medicine, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm not sure I'd be alive right now.
That could possibly be true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
not only because of illnesses.
No, and I'm not even talking about just illnesses either.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, conflict too.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've all had our conflicts, and probably more of mine would have involved spears by this point in my life. So,
but it was a more violent time, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, per capita, world population, maybe not, but per capita Scandinavia population, definitely.
Yeah. But it's interesting that because when you ask this question, most people actually say no.
Yeah.
But I think two people has said yes.
Who?
So one is Faravida of Uglas, who doesn't work for Birka.
Okay.
And he's a reenactor. And he said yes without a doubt.
Okay.
And the other one is actually an archaeologist, Jim Hansson. He's a marine archaeologist. But he had a different reason. And his reason was that he is a carpenter by trade. And then he became an archaeologist.
Oh, okay.
So, but he was like, yeah, I could make a living, working with wood, building houses of timber and stuff like that. So he thought that would be like...
See, if I were going to time travel, then I'd time travel back to the 2010s, right?
Okay.
Because, well, everything changes, right? I mean, who knows what's coming in terms of YouTube and videos and everything, right? Is it all going to be just AI people talking at you on YouTube 10 years from now, right? It's like, I know how to make a living with this in the 2010s. Do I in the 2030s? Yet to be seen.
That is true. That is true. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you here.
Hey,
Thank you so much for stopping by, and hope you have a great Midsummer's Eve party.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And looking forward to reading your translation of the Edda as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right.
Hey, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, check out our other episodes on our YouTube channel, Spotify, and other podcast streaming services. And also, subscribe to support our work. Thanks for listening.